Hi, I'm Glenn, and this is Chris DeCarlo. I'm going to be interviewing him uh, on the topic of Noam Chomsky's book, Manufacturing Consent.
And also, Noam Chomsky and Edward S. Herman. Everybody always forgets.
I know.
Like Matt Harden pointed out, it's like Frederick Engels. Everyone forgets he also co-wrote Communist Manifesto with Karl Marx.
Yeah. Alright. Well, Chris has been reading the book since about April vacation a couple weeks ago.
So,
I mean, there it is.
the bookmark.
He jams Econo. Okay. So, Chris, could you briefly tell us what Mr. Professor Noam Chomsky is saying?
Professor Herman. Basically, it's a criticism of the mass media in America specifically, and how it's more like a corporate control over what we hear, and that's basically what we or see on TV or read or whatever, and that's how people will make their decisions, and that's how pretty much a democracy happens. So when when they get suppressed information, which he shows with numerous examples in the mass media, then it really isn't a democracy, and people can't make adequate decisions, I guess. And what they basically do in the first chapter is they have a propaganda model, because he believes that in the mass media, United States mass media, is basically it's propaganda and government propaganda, and Chomsky and Herman basically have like 5 or 6 filters, and they show how each that's their propaganda models, 5 or 6 filters of how.
Which one do you think is the most important?
Consciously. It says the first filter is size, ownership, and profit orientation of the mass media. So that's basically the people who own it and stuff like that. It goes through the major corporations at the time, because this was written in 1988, so.
But revised in 2002 or something?
Not exactly. Well, they had an introduction, and they added to different things, and
to make it more timely, I heard.
Yeah, but the rest of the book is as is. There's introduction's only like 40 pages, so.
Sure. I was talking to you earlier about the complexity of the reading, and if it's, what level you need to be on in order to read it and stuff. And you said that you can really just pick it up and kind of grasp everything.
I wouldn't say everything, but most of it is, most Chomsky and Herman's, the writing in it's pretty straightforward and direct, and it's meant to be like for, average or working class, average, everyday people, it's not made for elites, obviously. It's not made for intellectuals or, college professors or something like that.
It's a good tactic.
Yeah, but there are certain things, sometimes it's references, maybe it's because it was written over 20 years ago, that, at least I didn't pick up on, and sometimes I didn't understand everything, or I had to read something more than once, a few times, but most of it's pretty direct and straightforward. It's just anybody that cares about freedom or democracy should read it, but this film, I'm thinking film, it wasn't made into a film.
Very good on YouTube. The introduction is amazing. This trailer, I mean.
Yeah,
amazing.
I posted it before. Anyway, the book basically is anyone that interested, like I was saying, freedom and democracy, that believes in that, it's well worth a read, but it's really not technically necessarily about those concepts from rather just how, it's just about the media itself and how that they do a poor job of being true or honest, really. That's what it's basically saying. It's really kind of funny, because most people or at least believe there's a liberal media bias, or that, that the media is fair and balanced.
Does the book, I mean, from what I've heard with you, the book kind of touches on specific conflicts, Pol Pot say the least.
Yeah,
And
this
how is that
basically,
relevant to the political
well,
economy
slow
of the mass
down.
media?
So that basically when that with that title, if you wanted me to just explain that the economy factor is really just referencing to the privileged elites and that how they want their basically like politics, if you want to say okay, Republican, Democrat, not necessarily like that, but just how the people themselves, or like a concept of democracy, how that functions with how the economy of the mass media, essentially the people that own the media, the privileged elites, how they want the politics of the people to be, though. So that's why it's, manufacturing consent, I can't remember the guy's, I think it's like Walter Lippmann, was where they got the phrase from. It's basically just basically manufacturing people's consent, though. It's like,
Now, is it really a fact that the elite run the media?
Yes, essentially. If you want to
Without a doubt.
Yeah, well, the you want to say, okay, so the major corporations that own the mass media, not every single media, this is of course independent media, this is a media thing, that they are wealthy and more than just, wealth, absolute upper class, and...
Right, but can you, is it really necessary to associate their wealth with, what they're actually putting on the news?
Well, it's not them, it's that they own it, and that there's direct times where he gives examples of where, where certain information is suppressed because, the example, at Morningfield, there's advertising, they can, a lot of times, the news won't, present something because they'll lose advertising for that, though, and so they have to change, they alter things, and it's basically what he gives some examples in the chapter Worthy and Unworthy Victims. He goes through different examples. I already discussed this, I think, before with you.
Probably.
Of, where there would be client states with the U.S., and,
is that the, are you talking about the Pope thing?
Pope Valesco, are you talking about?
Actually, no, excuse me, how, something that had to do with the nuns, yeah.
I'll get the graphic.
Is that what you're talking about?
One, a murdered Polish priest versus 100 murdered religious in Latin America. He goes through, there's a table right here. Mass media coverage of worthy and unworthy victims. I got it for 19 bucks an hour. Anyway. Starts off with a new introduction from the authors in the, 2002 or whenever they reissued it, but the original book itself basically covers propaganda model. They go through their propaganda model. They have the first chapter is worthy and unworthy victims, essentially what we just went through there, and then they have the second chapter is about third world elections, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. And alright, and they go through how the media covered those elections, and specifically when they go through certain, I think Carter started it, but chiefly with Ronald Reagan, and later with Bush Sr. Selling and supported and consciously very fervently supported the dictators over in El Salvador and Guatemala, and he essentially destroyed Latin America. It's with supplying arms to their dictators over there, and
which basically makes all those presidents.
And there was elections and this is in the early 80s, and there were elections in there, and the media would just basically they called them free elections, and Dan Rather would say it was an excellent free election right now in Guatemala or El Salvador. There's specific
poor Dan Rather
parts. And then they show out in Nicaragua where things may have been actually a little bit better. They made it seem much worse, and they made the election seem like they weren't free at all, which they were far more free than they were in El Salvador and